Welcome to the Real Photo Show. Earlier today, I recorded with Marshall Toe, and we talk about his book, Blank Notes, which was published by Charcoal Press. And of course, we are sponsored by the Charcoal Book Club. So if you were a member, you would have received this wonderful book. And if you're not a member, please join today at charcoalbookclub.com. So Marshall and I were going to talk about his upbringing and his family and religion and hungry ghosts and how that all informed this work. We'll talk about how being a multidisciplinary artist also affects the way he thinks about the way he utilizes photography. We'll talk about collaboration with Jesse Lenz at Charcoal Press. And we'll talk about food as love language because Marshall is a chef and food was a way that his family communicated with each other. And ultimately, we'll talk about how this work brings him or brought him closer to his family. Before we get to that, let me just say this. Before I forget, I should say, about 30 minutes into the show, I start a slideshow of the book. So if you have not been watching the podcast on Spotify or YouTube, this would be a good time to try it out. Of course, you can just listen to the show and then maybe go back later, even turn off the volume and watch the slideshow. But anyway, we are on Spotify and YouTube at Real Photo Show, also as video. It's actually kind of a cool feature if you listen on Spotify because if you're watching your phone, it's video. If you're listening through the car or Bluetooth, it just comes through as audio. Also, of course, I run the JKC Gallery, as you have heard me say a few times on the show. We have a show up now that is a community show and a student show called Memory Objects, and it is based upon the idea that photographs become our memory over time, at least influence our memories over time. That is up through February 5th. And then we have a show by Lily Coleman, who also is the founder of Frame Sequence out of Philly. Check that out if you have not. And if you want to stay on top of what we're doing at the gallery, including some upcoming artist talks, check out mercergallery.org and click, I think, subscribe and get on the mail list. It's a button in the upper right-hand corner. All right, what else? I'm tired because I've been working all day, recording and editing the show. So I think that's it. I think I'll say bye for now. Thank you for listening. And hopefully we'll either see each other or we'll talk soon. All right. Hey, Marshall. Thanks for joining me.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So we haven't actually seen each other since the Chica review last year.
Yeah, that felt like so long ago.
Yeah. And in the meantime, you have published your first monograph, Blank Notes.
Yeah, it's been what, like 4 or 5 months?
Yep.
I guess.
Yeah. And we were going back and forth how we wanted to do this. But if we wait too much longer, I don't know, it'll feel like too long ago.
Yeah, and we like you said, and that Chico's just it's always so busy. And
I always
crazy.
think I'm going to record with 5 more speakers and reviewers and guests and everybody who works there, and I never get a chance.
Especially, did last year? Did you do it in your room?
I did a few in
Okay.
my room, but mostly it was the attendees. In the that little back room
In the
where
closet.
everybody waits. Yeah, with my little electric fireplace. Yes,
Yeah.
which I love, and thank you, Katie, for that. Yes.
Yeah.
But anyway, Marshall, why don't you just give us some background, where you grew up, how you grew up, and how you get into art and photography. And I've read a lot, and I know it's a really interesting story.
Yeah. I grew up in a place called Red Deer, Alberta, which is a town in between Calgary and Edmonton. And it's kind of it's a town that just everyone stops by in, but no one really stays there to, see anything in particular because it's just a place for people to stop between the two larger cities. But it's such a nice, quiet place. Growing up, flat landscapes, deathly cold. Lots of time and space for the imagination to kind of run wild. And I was the only Chinese kid in my class. Um, so there was already at the beginning of like a push and a pull of cultures, and yeah, I really enjoyed where I grew up. I think it really informed a lot of who I am creatively later on. But there was definitely it was kind of a dead space for also art. I don't remember seeing a lot of art there, but I think where like my fascination began of things of wanting to just watch was just watching National Geographic every day.
Mm. Yeah. I mean, you're in this very rural area, and that definitely influences your work.
Yeah.
But you also grow up with a family that is heavily into Taoism, right?
Yeah, which was very different for a place like that, and, yeah, it was comforting in lots of ways of having, my grandparents' pictures up, in a shrine and looking at them every day and being reminded of that, we are where we are because of the people before us and the continuous kind of show of respect of people that have come and gone, and that was a big part of it, and that being very respectful of things that aren't necessarily seen. There's and the beautiful stories that certain especially Taoism has, movies and books and just like in Western culture, but that's slightly different, but it's a little bit more fantastical. So it also something that informed my creativity for the future.
Yeah. What about education-wise? What did you study in college?
I didn't go to college.
That's the piece I was missing. Yeah. You
uh,
you go into cooking.
yeah, I actually I moved from Calgary at the time to Vancouver to study fashion for a year, but ended up getting kicked out of school. And then I just went into retail for a long time, and then I went into cooking, and because I could never fit in a curriculum. I hated following people's ideas.
Hmm.
I remember just, like, even in art class in high school, I only chose to do the assignments that I found interesting, which, there weren't that many, so I almost failed art class too, so, yeah, so I've always been someone who just, starts from the bottom and tries to work my way up because that's kind of my school, I guess.
Yeah, well, let's spend a little time on food and how important that is, in your life and in really your artistic practice. Because I know food leads to photography, but how did food become an interest for you?
I think, especially culturally, it's always such, an important part of, Asian culture. There's kind of this stoicism in our culture where, you know, you you don't really say what you mean, but you show what you mean,
Mhm.
and that is just presenting, an abundance of food in front of you, and that is how much love is shown.
Yeah, I think you even mentioned food as a kind of language, right? In
Absolutely.
some previous interviews I read through. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's like when you're sick and your partner or your loved one makes you soup, it means so much more sometimes than something that is said.
Mhm. Yeah,
Um,
and in things that aren't said in terms of, forgiveness or apologies or, uh, other feelings that maybe you can't express verbally, food was a big part of how your family communicated.
Absolutely, absolutely, and also, in our culture, on Sundays when we had family dinners, we would have, 5 plates of food
Mm.
and soup and then a bowl of rice, and, you're picking and choosing, and it's such a, like, a choose your own adventure kinda thing, and
Mhm.
it was fun, it was much more fun than, going out to eat in different places, so it's kind of just so built into the family and the culture.
Yeah, my sister's from Hong Kong, and she went through some troubled times with relationships and other things, but food was always at the center of visiting and hanging out and talking things through. And whether it was a real adventure of a dim sum in Chinatown, or it was you know her home where the kitchen was the center of everything, and there was always food cooking at any given time. So it was a real experience for me,
Yeah.
learning how much communication can happen through food. Absolutely.
Absolutely, and like it's always you're breaking bread every time.
Mhm.
You're just like in blank notes, like there's a lot of you're offering to the dead and also the living as well constantly.
That's
Um,
right.
yeah,
Ye
just and it's an easier way.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and blank notes and, we will get to the idea of the hungry ghosts, which comes from your childhood experience. But before we do, how does then, studying or working to be a chef, becoming a chef, lead to photography?
Food led to photography because of my natural wandering, and a friend of mine suggested that I should just take pictures of my food because I started to style my food a lot,
Mm,
and I really enjoyed that part of like composing food and in really good lighting and plating. So that started a series of like food photography that I started doing, just making recipes and cooking and then taking pictures of that. But then that led to wanting more,
mm.
wanting wanting to kind of like dive deeper into myself and see what I was made of, or see what else there was out there. Because so, like taking pictures of the food is kind of like it's insular, and I wanted to, capture and kind of be present in the rest of the world.
What do you mean insular? You mean it was, so kind of, single focused and only for a set, a set audience or a set purpose?
Yeah, like you're just doing it by yourself, and you're just,
Oh, okay.
you're doing it inside a house usually, and there's no atmosphere, there's no vibe, and even sometimes when I was doing certain assignments for food, for magazines, I was by myself.
Mm.
I was going to a restaurant before they even opened, and taking pictures, and I was like, this is like photography. Like there was more life in the finished product, but I was just, I needed more life to it.
Mhm. Well, how does then painting, drawing, because you're a multidisciplinary artist, and I'd put food in there as well. Well, how does painting and drawing and other forms of art then work their way in?
I've always My brother and I used to draw, as little children. He ended up becoming a comic book artist.
Mm.
And if it wasn't for his example of just being able to make it for, working hard and, being talented at what he did, honestly, it probably wouldn't have given me that much hope to do what I do, because it was kind of the same step. Um, but it's also, as I got older, I needed different things and I wanted to explore different avenues and not just photography. I needed something possibly a little bit more intimate because painting and drawing is so physical. I'm touching, the paper and the utensils, and which at different times I find very helpful for my photography, because I get, the intimacy I need from expression and doing art, and then I could take a little step back and have different ideas for photography. I think for me, it's very helpful to be, hands on, hands off.
The relationship now that you have with, photography and then painting and drawing, I think that also very much shows up in this book, which is a photographic book, but it is done in a way that I think has that sense of photography isn't just this highly descriptive medium, right? That you're using it in a way that you would also use in terms of your paintings and your drawings. Does that sound right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I definitely look as a you know, an extension and a form of expression coming out of me, just like as if I was painting, and you know, using that same, you know, principle and core, you know, of myself into all of it, even though some of it takes a little bit different, different thinking sometimes, but it all kind of bleeds into each other,
Mhm.
you know, which I love, which has really helped me, you know, evolve.
Yeah, and the influence of your childhood experiences and your family and Taoism are also a part of all your other practices as well. From what I can see, from the work that I've looked at on the website, your influences from other artists also have played into how you express this idea of hungry ghosts in blank notes. Tell us about. From what I can tell, it looks like this work came through approaching this idea through your different disciplines, and the untitled project as part of your website, I think does lead directly to the book Blank Notes in
Yeah,
terms of the actual imagery. But talk about how things all led up to this book.
it feels like forever ago that
Hmm.
Jesse and I, you know, began
Jesse
all of
Lenz,
this.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
it's it feels unreal, that you know, just here at the moment. But you know, it really just started off as very something that was literal, because I really enjoyed going out there and photographing animals, and I compartmentalized a lot of things and thought that every project was its own project, you
Mhm.
know. And I think a lot of people have that you know, that issue sometimes, is that they compartmentalize their projects too much. And I did that at the very beginning. And it wasn't until, you know, working with Jesse Lenz and other people like Igor and you know, that
Igor Posner.
Igor
Yeah,
Posner,
yeah.
that it really, it was all one world. And
Mhm.
if I brought myself completely into it, and I broke down whatever barriers I was putting up, that I was really able to tap into something else. And that was really difficult. I It was hard to imagine, but it was incredibly helpful, because then you have, when you're at the beginning of making a book, you're just making work. You're not making a book yet, right?
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And you have absolute freedom. So why put up those walls before they're even built?
Mhm.
And you know, I'm so thankful that that was, you know, that was kind of like punched out of me, so that I was able to have free reign. Because you know, looking back now that the book is fully done, I really missed that early on stage where I had this, you know, I can't even describe the like, you know, the just going out there, just shooting everything that you're seeing,
Mhm.
and just being in the moments all the time. It was such
Right.
an invigorating feeling that I miss. And I wasn't even thinking too much about it. And then
Right.
yeah, and then afterwards, you know, you have really good editors and really good people around you that really help you edit and come up with ideas that also come from where you come from. And it's such an amazing amalgamation of you know, of creativity and friendship.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you look at your website, you have, your paintings and drawings, you have Untitled Project, you have Nature of Daylight, and um, like we just said, you can see the how it all comes together just looking at that small sample of work. But the idea of sort of breaking down what you thought were separate projects is I something I think that comes with also a kind of maturity as well, after creating the work and then having some time to rethink it or see that you've been doing a similar thing for many, many years and in some ways repeating yourself in a good way, which leads you then to, oh, wait, this is what I'm actually interested in and this is what I'm actually doing, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting, and a lot of it is just I needed to, yeah, like you said, mature and have the capacity to listen.
Hmm.
Um, I'm not always great at listening, and usually because art
Hence
is
not
so
going to
personal.
college, yes.
Yeah, or following rules. Yeah, it's like, but until you have the capacity to listen, can you truly take in any advice or any words from people that have been there before, and yeah, that have been doing it longer. I mean, like it's always such personal projects that everyone is very, protective over. So when people say certain things, it's really hard to take,
Hmm.
you know. But the benefit of like hearing things, like there's so much benefit of hearing things that you don't want to hear.
Right. Absolutely. So, I mean, let's talk more specifically about the book. The book itself doesn't have text, but of course, you've done interviews, and there is the notes that come in the with Charcoal Book Club that give us some background, and in your a little bit of your bio, it talks about leading up to the book, that a book that combines unique integration of Western and immediate landscapes and Eastern rituals and belief. Can you talk a little bit about the ritual that leads to the book? I believe it's once every so often there's an opening of the gates of hell so that the hungry ghosts can be fed, right?
Yeah, yeah. I didn't even know the true specifics of this festival.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was young, it was just something that my parents really warned us about, growing up, not to do anything dumb,
Huh.
during these festivals, so that something would follow you home for disrespecting, um, you know, just the environment.
Mm.
But it's something that we would go to the cemetery every time there was the festival, and leave food offerings and pay our respects to every single person that was in that cemetery that we were related to.
Wow.
It was kind of, as a kid, it was different, it was kind of scary, but it was exciting. Yeah, that was such a big part of my upbringing until
Well,
now.
you also had a very visceral reaction to these festivals, right?
Yeah, I would always get sick.
Yes.
Yeah, every time I would get sick. So for the longest time, I wasn't allowed to get out of the car even.
Wow.
Yeah, I would always get these incredible fevers afterwards that led to, crazy moments in my life. It's weird. It's still surreal when I think about it now. I'm not,
Right. I mean, it honestly, it could make you a real believer, right? That that you were doing something perhaps wrong during these festivals, right?
absolutely. And I don't know I don't know if ghosts are real or whatever, but there's definitely something that is that is unseen, that energy that you feel,
Mhm.
um and sometimes consumes you.
Yeah.
And as a very sensitive child, I was always sick. um I had tons of allergies growing up. I was
Mhm.
always in and out of the hospital, and incredibly sensitive. Like I would have, I remember my uh growing up, like my doors would slam shut, you
Mm.
know and I'd be up all night just afraid.
Oh, yeah.
So I guess I've just always kind of been, very much aware that
Mhm.
that there might be something else.
Well, I think that whether you think of it as spirits or darkness or however, you translated it into an attraction to a kind of darkness, I think, because in your influences, there's the 1960s Japanese films. I read you were interested in Onibaba and Koroniko. I hope I said that right. But those are very post World War II,
Yeah,
trauma dealing with, life in Japan through horror films, right?
yeah,
Um, and there's the influence you had from Masao Yamamoto and the owls as
yeah.
well. And those owls can represent either a kind of underworld death and rebirth, or they can represent someone who tries to know too much, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel incredibly lucky, growing up in the culture that I did because there is that connection, that immediate connection with the possibility that these older things know more than us
Mhm.
and that they could tell stories even without speaking. Like it's just very interesting, and just being on the edge of that connection between that natural world and that physical world.
And
um
that's where your book lies, right? That's where this
Absolutely.
work lies. Yeah, so let talk more about that, how all those influences and the way you treat photography, which is in some ways pictorial, but I think more than pictorial. I think it is the hand of the artist, right? I think
Yeah,
there is all the film scars you can think of, the stains, the scratches, the
yeah,
hairs, the dust, the fogging, right? It's all in there.
yeah. Yeah, throughout making the work, it was 7 years, and a lot of things happens in 7 years,
Mhm.
and it was definitely a way of expression through all the experiences through those 7 years. I mean, COVID was in there, and it was, and then other difficult times that helped you, that are experienced nonetheless, that I use to help me get through moments. So that's why when they started off, or animals started off as such a relief to me, going to find them and finding inner peace, or attempting to, and then they became something different as things started to get difficult in my life, and started to present themselves in different ways. Like I would start seeing owls in the middle of the night randomly.
Mm.
um and then they started, that whole art imitating life thing, and it almost started to feel true. um as I was going out there and trying to find meaning through the darkness of life sometimes. And then using inspirations of the movies and the books. Like it was like I was living in those inspirations like every day, so it became easier in some ways. You know I don't know if that answers your question
Oh,
fully.
absolutely, it's getting there. That progression you talked about, the animals and then COVID and the, more of that darkness entering your life and the work. When I looked at Nature of Daylight the first time,
Yeah.
I saw a kind of combination of joy and respect in the way you were photographing the animals. Like, it felt very different from the other work. It felt like you were finding, freedom in in the way you were photographing the animals, like, you were just finding this sense of connection that felt very empowering in a way.
There like there's a part of I think looking at nature, and where there's a jealousy of freedom,
Mm,
and you look at it in awe, and their just ability to do as they please without the baggage that we have.
mhm,
And it kind of leaves me in tears almost all the time, um because it's like it's on my end, on our end, as human beings, we have the the privilege and the price of consciousness, of knowing, and then they have the freedom of kind of just being free and being existing. um and they can experience the beauty that we experience, which is also the privilege.
mhm.
So there's such a a divide and a weird kind of like you're just both in the same space at the same time, but you're experiencing it in different, you know, uh,
Absolutely. No, I think that that comes through those photographs, very
you
much
know,
so. And then, of course, yeah, the owl is almost like a transition, like a transition from that to, something a little more foreboding even, or something a little more feeling like a warning, right?
yeah, things in my life got kind of difficult at that point. Like my dad got sick and I wasn't able to go out as often. Because I had different responsibilities at that time. And
Mhm.
in that time period, I was shooting less, but luckily I had all those images beforehand, so we were really able to tell a story, as I was going through those times. Um,
Right.
and then, the taking the pictures and then looking at them afterwards and then finding the narrative as you're kind of in a kind of wherever you are in the moment in your life, and then you look at those images, you tend to, pick and choose and sequence it in such a way. So it's really interesting, looking at the all the images, while experiencing, difficult moments.
Yeah. Well, our friend Todd Hido, wrote something lovely about the work as his, pick of 2025. Was that Lens Culture where he picked the book for 2025?
Yeah, I
Or
believe so. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Most importantly, Mr. Toe, and by the way, it kills me when he calls you Mr. Toe.
He never calls me Mr. Toad. I don't think he calls me Mr. Toad in person, but
No, but most importantly, Mr. Toe strikes a tone of being about something passing, something moving, with many different creatures flying or trotting through the woods, many of them, especially owls, looking right back at us. Carefully woven in there are a few pictures of people and sparse dwellings that become implied places between worlds that complicate or defeat a narrative reading. And that is a really great summary to the idea of the experience of looking through the book, because it does sort of bounce back in and out and around occasional person, occasional home or building, these dark, dark landscapes. Again, everything very much reminding us that this is done with black and white film, and I think that is, maybe you can tell me I'm wrong about this. I think that is so influenced by your love of those Japanese horror films, the idea of working in that medium, but also it goes in and out of things that feel more like literal descriptions and then things that feel way more fantasy-like.
the Japanese horror films, especially the black and white ones, it really made me get right into it. I didn't really,
Mhm.
there was no distractions. It got me right into the story. Didn't have to think about whether it was real or it was realistic or whatnot.
Right. That's the interesting thing about those early practical effects, right, in the '60s.
Yeah.
You know what they are, but then you just let that go, right?
Yeah, and then you're into the whole thing immediately, and
Mhm.
and you're able to watch a 2-hour movie.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, yeah.
Which I have hard time now. I have a hard time watching, an hour and a half movie that's in color sometimes. It's such an interesting way to translate life through difficult times.
Mhm.
Like you mentioned, like post World War II, horrors of that's how they were able to translate a lot of things, and through movies all the time, movies or books, so it's kind of this, I really like
Mhm.
that concept of doing that, and it made sense to me, and I felt such release doing it that way.
Yeah.
um
Well, you mentioned that you were going through things in your family, illnesses in your family, difficult times. And of course, we know in the history of art, abstractionism and surrealism, those tools have been used to almost like protest the idea that we've been told this is right and this is reality. and we now discover, we've been misled, right?
Absolutely. And we all live different realities,
Hmm. Yeah.
and, and we feel things differently, and we need different things to express, and that's what's so interesting. That's what's so interesting. And I definitely try to break conformity as fast as I can, and
Hmm.
I resist it, even, and because it's just also it's more fun that way.
Hmm.
I love, the scratches and because everything is so precious nowadays. Everything is so, and this is probably not a popular belief, but I feel like sometimes when it's put on a white wall, it's like where work goes to die. And that's a personal belief. That's just a personal belief where it's just like, where's the fun in it? Where's the like, yeah, I just wanna stir things up.
What about the idea of not having text as part of the book?
I am not a great writer as of yet, not or will ever be.
Oh, no, I
Um,
like where you left it as of yet. We don't know.
but there are texts in the way of like, there's embossed Chinese writings
That's right.
of
That's
that
right.
book.
I'm sorry. That was a that was poor, right, of me to leave that out. Yes, I will post that. There is it's very subtle. You have to kind of hold it up to a certain light. I'm holding it up now
Yeah,
to
exactly.
see it. Yes.
Yeah, I
So
can't even see it through
technically,
here.
yeah, technically there is text. I apologize
No,
for
no,
that.
no.
Ignorant statement of mine.
No, I think that there's, when things kind of live in that middle ground
Mhm.
of not of leading people to mystery and to their own devices without directly leading them to water is such an more interesting way, I think, for me to create from.
Mhm.
And even looking at the book now, sometimes I have a hard time, of truly translating it. Like,
Sure.
I'm
Yeah.
glad that this is my second podcast, because the first one I was so nervous, and I don't know how I'm gonna talk about this. Because as soon as it was done, I kind of just I changed my mindset, and I was moving
Mm.
on. And then now looking back and it meaning different things as I look at it more and more, and finding new things about and what it says to me and where I was.
Mhm.
And I find that to me better than if I were to put text in to, say something, because that's not really my thing. Like if Brad Zeller wanted to collaborate,
Mhm.
I would totally do it.
Right. Right. No, no, I get that completely, and that
Yeah.
wasn't certainly wasn't a criticism
No, no,
of the
no.
text. Yeah, yeah, I think it's
No.
an experience to look through this book and feel that moving, feel that transition between, between worlds, as Todd Hido put it. I think that's a real fantastic experience. Actually, because you did bring it up, do you mind sort of explaining a little bit what the Chinese characters are in reference to the book?
There My dad writes these Buddhist prayers over and over again,
Mhm.
and I don't even know what the translation is truly, but he it's we have this like little you can buy them at the temples, and they're these little tiny speakers.
Mm.
You play them over and over, and they're just Buddhist chants that continues to go over and over.
Oh,
He would just write these chants continuously through, and also he enjoys Chinese calligraphy, so he would just write them over and over as practice.
and
And
it also sounds like, as meditation.
yes, absolutely,
Mhm.
absolutely. And so that was a very, when I saw it on a table one day, on a coffee table, I thought that was, you know, aesthetically, first off, was it was something to behold, and then I had to ask him because I actually can't read Chinese characters. I I took Chinese school for 1 year and I couldn't do it. I couldn't read
Too much
anything.
instruction for you?
Yeah, and that's another reason why I don't have any sort of texts and books because yeah. Which I wasn't taking offense at all to that last question. I was in my own head. I'm like, oh, I'm not a great writer. I'm not a great reader.
But you can cook, man.
Yeah, right. Exactly. That's why it's like we talked about these languages of like
Hmm.
that's the thing I feel most insecure about is
Right.
actually communicating with words.
Oh yeah, no, I get that completely. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about now the collaboration part of it, working with Jesse, because I do see Jesse's, fingerprints all over this.
yeah.
Jesse is very much interested in that connection to nature, in that space that becomes a little bit fantasy, that space that becomes a little filled with imagination, right? And I think that very much overlaps with the idea that you are working with childhood experiences in this project. How did that all come together?
It was the I tried to go to Chico again, but then COVID happened.
Oh, this is early on when you were an attendee.
Yeah, when I was attendee,
Oh
because
yeah.
I went the second
Mm-hmm.
Chico review, which is Collective Quarterly at that time,
Mm.
and my work was so different.
Mm-hmm.
But I met John Levitt and then Jesse Lenz, and I showed them some of my other stuff that I wasn't showing people. So they kind of got my foot in
Mm-hmm.
at that point, and then when I was gonna go the second time with new work, it obviously didn't work out because of COVID, and then they did it in October, and I was able to go, and because it was a smaller set, there's a smaller group of people, I was able to really show them my work in a different way, and
Mm-hmm.
not just through a review. And so that kind of started the wheels, for that stuff, because at that point my work had changed entirely. I switched from digital to black and white film, and I was mainly shooting, I think, like 3200
Hmm.
Ilford, and I was not using a light meter, and I was just shooting like crazy, and I was just, you know, and so it yeah it that was the way to break the ice with Jesse.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to break the ice with Jesse, just show him a bunch of pictures of dead animals. To all the listeners, right? Like,
Oh no, please don't everyone bring dead animal photos to Chico.
um, but also because he has an incredibly interesting background,
Hmm.
and getting to know him more, it's crazy the similarities
Yes,
of our upbringings, and
absolutely. Yeah, he's spoken about his ministry background on the show as well. Yeah.
yeah,
Yep. Yep.
and his like ability to weave in and out of those stories, and that like
Hmm.
imagination, and he was such a pivotal, person that broke down those walls that I mentioned, and,
Hmm.
and and told me to bring every part of me into it. So it was very organic that way. I can't say enough, and you know, it's
Yeah.
it's crazy.
And just to continue about Chico, because we're here, your role then switched at Chico, right?
Yeah, yeah. I kind of just became someone that's there every year, and I help, do whatever. Uh,
It's a good job description. I help do whatever.
yeah, yeah. And also because those, you've been there multiple times, and
Mhm.
it's such an amazing environment to meet people and to, create relationships that have lasted years.
Mhm.
How many friendships, and that's honestly what it's really about, is that creating that community, so that you can talk to people about your stuff. Because it seems like every person that goes to Chico is like, I don't have a community back home.
That's a big part of coming to it, absolutely. Or
Yeah,
you did have it when you were younger or when you were in school, and it's kind of just went away. Yeah.
yeah, and I feel like that's a part of my role, or that's what I feel like a big part of my responsibility that I put on myself, is that to state that fact continuously when people are having difficult times, because it can be difficult not hearing what you want to hear at reviews, you know,
But
and
good
you
to hear it too.
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
You're gonna take it hard at first, but you know it it really does stick with you,
Mhm.
and then you have an immediately built community around you right then and there.
Exactly. Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
so yeah, it's yeah. I mean, if you ask Jesse what my role is, it might be different, but
That's right. It's like, "Wait, no, 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 I need you to." That's right.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Like I like I mean, I drive a lot, which
That's
is
true, that's
yeah,
true. There is a lot
yeah.
of chauffeuring us around sometimes.
I remember driving I think the Gambarini brothers
Yeah.
and a couple other peoples through. There was a couple years ago. There was a crazy snowstorm
Oh, wow.
through the pass, and they had
Mhm.
just opened it,
Oh.
and it was sketchy. By the time we got to the airport, everyone in the van was just clapping,
Oh, man.
like I landed a plane.
That's right.
And then I see Katie right behind me.
Mhm, Katie Moore, yes.
Katie Moore. Shout out to Katie Moore.
Absolutely. Who gets a big round of applause at the end of every Chico event.
Yes, yes, yes. And she's behind me, and I'm like, oh, like, did you have a hard time going to the pass? Like, no, they they shoveled it. They paved it. And it was fine. But they had like a 30-minute earlier flight, so we had to get there.
Oh.
So we had to drive through the worst of it, through like seeing jackknifed trucks and everything.
Yeah, yeah, well, when you do, land and then and drive out to the resort, there are all these signs about, "This road may close," because it gets windy. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it's such a crazy place to be,
Mhm.
with all the people, and also just be at you're at the landscape
Yes.
is
Yeah.
uh sometimes unrelenting.
Absolutely. Yep, beautiful, and you can see that, the living can be hard. Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Just to, um, come back and tie it all together, this work, because it is so personal and it does come from experience with your family and all, how, developing this life putting this life together, how did your family respond to that? And then how does your family respond to the kind of work you do now?
A lot of it goes unspoken. I don't think it's necessarily their cup of tea.
Mhm. No,
Uh,
I mean, I think that's true for a lot of artists, right? It's a
yeah,
very different kind of life than most families sort of form around. Yeah.
yeah. I haven't truly talked to them about it.
Mm,
I've given them a book. I've signed it. But either way, I know that they're proud,
mhm.
and also they're like, finally. You said you've been wanting to do this. You said
Mhm,
that you were going to do this. So and that was 7 years, or whatever. So
mhm.
I know for a fact that they're proud of me, and it also allowed me to have like a different relationship with them because of the amount of asking them what things mean, or I had to do more research via them of what actually happens in the Hungry Ghost festivals, and like why, and ask them about their childhood, and like when, so
Mm-hmm.
it led me to a different relationship with them and knowing them as people and not just my parents.
That's fantastic. I mean,
Yeah,
that sounds like an incredible process. Yeah.
yeah, which you never know the stories that people hold, especially the people that are so stoic in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm richer for it now, which I'm incredibly grateful for. I heard stories from the old country that I've never heard before. Yeah, so it's been I think as cliche as it sounds, the journey of it with them through building it was so much more eventful than the the eventuality of it being done and then having them see it, because they don't see that part of how they enriched that book,
Right. Right.
because it was in the middle.
That's fantastic. I mean, that's just amazing, and I think a nice way to end. So thank you, Marshall.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks for having me. Sorry about the mix up.
No, no. The Marshall forgot what time zone he was in, which speaks a little bit to his life. Yeah.
I live in the ether.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
Oh, well, thank you so much. This was really great. I can't wait to see you again at Chico.
yeah. I'll see you in a couple months.
Yep, that's great. All right. Bye, everyone.
All right, bye everyone.
Real Photo Show is produced by me, Michael Chovan-Dalton. Music by Matteo Chovan-Dalton and Jim Raimundo. If you like the show, please rate and review with all the stars on your listening platform.